Good afternoon. Welcome back to social science class. My dear students, previous class we learned about the permanent settlement system, which was actually introduced in 1793. Just I would like to remember some points. See, when the East India Company introduced the permanent settlement in 1793. So, by the terms of the settlement, the Rajas and Talukdars were recognized as Jamindars. Okay, and here those Jamindars they were asked to collect rent from the peasants and pay revenue to the East India Company. So here the main responsibility of the Jamindars, those were recognized by the East India Company, the Talukdars, and then as well as the local chieftains or the Rajas. So they were asked to collect the rent from the peasants, and afterwards, so they needs to be paid the fixed amount of the revenue permanently to the East India Company. So the amount to be paid was fixed by East India Company. See, actually it was not to be increased ever in future. The amount, whatever decided by the East India Company, so it was a fixed. So this is what about the permanent settlement. Okay. So they are not going to increase in future also. So it was felt that this would ensure a regular flow of revenue into the East India companies and coffers, and at the same time encourage the Jamindars to invest more, especially to improve the land. So since the revenue demand of the state would not be increased, the Jamindar would benefit from increased production from the land. Now let us discuss about the problems of this permanent settlement. The problems of the permanent settlement. What were the problems of this permanent settlement? See, the permanent settlement, however, created a lot of problems. Company officials so soon discovered that the Jamindars were in fact not investing in the improvement of land. So they were found that. So actually the East India Company, it was believed that so by investing some of the amount, so the Jamindars they were going to improve the land. But the result was that the company officials, so they were discovered the reality. Here, the Jamindars, they were in fact not investing in the improvement of land. And the revenue that had been fixed by was so high that the Jamindar also found it to pay very difficult. It was too difficult to pay because the fixed amount or the fixed revenue that was so high, it was also found by the Jamindars. See here, the another one major problem that so already the revenue it was fixed by the East India Company. Whether they are going to get the same amount of the revenue from the land or benefit, okay, that is a secondary. But here when the Jamindars they were found it difficult to pay, so during the situation actually it was very difficult to Jamindars because of the another problem. So why? Because now if whoever it may be the Jamindars who failed to pay the revenue to the East India Company, so they are going to lost is Jamindar. So actually they were considered and they were recognized as jamindars. Suppose those jamindars who failed to pay the revenue, last is jamindari. ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಸಪೋಸ್ ಯಾರ್ದಾದ್ರೂ ಜಮೀನ್ದಾರರು ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಂತಹ ರೆವಿನ್ಯೂ ಅನ್ನ ಸೊ ಅವ್ರು ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್ ಆದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಅವರ ಜಮೀನ್ದಾರಿ ಹಕ್ಕನ್ನ ಸೊ ಈಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಕಂಪನಿ ಅದು ರದ್ದುಗೊಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು. Then because of this system, the numerous jamindars were sold off at actions organized by the company. ಸೊ ಆ ಜಮೀನ್ದಾರಿ ಹಕ್ಕನ್ನ ಸೊ ಏನಾಯ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೂಗೋದ್ರ ಮುಖಾಂತರ, ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ದಟ್, ಹರಾಜಿಗೆ ಹಾಕೋದ್ರ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ಸೋಲ್ಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು. ಸೊ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ದೀಸ್ ಆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ವರ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ಈಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಕಂಪನಿ. So those who are failed to pay the revenue to the East India Company, so they were lost their jamindari rights also, and as well as so their jamindars, their lands, so were also sold off at auctions which were organized by East India Company. So these are all the problems we can observe in this Permanent Settlement Act. So, after that, dear students, by the first decade of the 19th century, the situation it was changed a bit. So, first decade of the 19th century. So, ಏನಾಯ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸುಧಾರಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಕಾಣಿಸುತ್ತೆ. So, during the first decade of 19th century, the prices in the market rose and cultivation slowly expanded. This is what one good sign of in this first decade of the 19th century. So what happened? The prices in the market rose slowly and even so the cultivation also expanded. So this meant an increase in the income of the jamindars. That means what? So the increase that increases the income of the jamindars. But see, now again what happened? The income of the jamindars too increased, but no gain for the company since it could not increase a revenue demand that had been fixed permanently. But what about the company situation? So the company, it was already fixed the amount or the revenue. So because of that, even the income of the jamindars too increased also. So, but no gain or no profit for the company because the company itself fixed the revenue demand before itself. So whatever the fixed permanently, so that's what. So here the benefit during this time, especially the first decade of the 19th century, so it was actually benefited to the jamindars but not to East India Company. So even then the jamindars did not have an interest in improving the land. So this is the another problem. So even though the jamindars were getting a lot of profit or income, even though so they were not having, so they did not have an interest in investing or improvement in the land. So they are not ready. So land ಮೇಲೆ ಇವನ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ಇದೆ, ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಹ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಸಹ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. They are not ready to improve the land. So some had lost their lands in the earlier years of the settlement. So before, so many jamindars, they were lost their lands because of the earlier years of the settlement. So others now saw the possibility of earning without the trouble and the risk of investment. So some of them were understood. So that is about, so the possibility of earning without the trouble and the risk of investment. ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ರಿಸ್ಕ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಬೇಕು, ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಅರ್ನ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟುಂಡ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಆಸ್ ಲಾಂಗ್ ಆಸ್ ದ ಜಮೀನ್ದಾರ್ಸ್ ಕುಡ್ ಗಿವ್ ಔಟ್ ದ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಟು ಟೆನೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಗೆಟ್ ರೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಜಮೀನ್ದಾರ್ಸ್ ಸಹ ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ತಮ್ಮ ಜಮೀನುಗಳನ್ನ ಅದನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ ಟೆನೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಗಳಿಗೆ. ಸೊ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಅದರಿಂದ ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಸೊ ರೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ದೇ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಇಂಟರೆಸ್ಟೆಡ್ ಇನ್ ಇಂಪ್ರೂವಿಂಗ್ ದ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್, just they are getting the rent from the tenants, but they were not interested in improving the land. So the zamindars, so they were not at all interested, they were not showing interest especially in improving the land. On the other hand, in the villages the cultivators found the system extremely oppressive for villagers, because the rent he paid to the zamindar, it was so high, and his right on the land was insecure. It is about the cultivators. ಸೊ ಒಂದ್ ಕಡೆ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ, ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಬಟ್ಟೆ ಅವರು ಪಾಪ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ಇನ್ನೊಂದ್ ಕಡೆ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ದೇರ್ ವಾಸ್ ನೋ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ, they were all felt, so the right of the land, it was completely insecure. See, to pay the rent he had to often take a loan from the money lender. ಸೊ ಕೆಲವು ಸರಿ ಏನಾಗ್ತಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಆ ರೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರ ಮನಿ ಲೆಂಡರ್ಸ್ ಗಳ ಹತ್ರ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಿ ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಅಂಡ್ ಸಮಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ವೆನ್ ದ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಫೇಲ್ಡ್ ಟು ಪೇ ದ ರೆಂಟ್, ಹಿ ವಾಸ್ ಎವಿಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್. ಸಪೋಸ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಅವರು ಆ ಒಂದು ರೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪೇ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಆ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಇಂದ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಎಲಿಮಿನೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ದೇ ವರ್ evicted from their own land which they had cultivated for generation. ತಲೆ ತಲಾಂತರಗಳಿಂದ ಆ ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಟಿವೇಶನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದ್ದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಭೂಮಿಯನ್ನ ಅವರು ಕಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂತಹ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಸೊ ಉಂಟಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪರ್ಮನೆಂಟ್ ಸೆಟಲ್ಮೆಂಟ್ which was introduced in 1793 by East India Company. Now, let us discuss about the new system which was devised to solve this problem to get more benefit, especially for the company benefit. So, let us discuss about a new system. What about this new system? So actually, by the early 19th century, many of the company officials were convicted for what? So that many of the company officials, so they were convinced that the system of revenue had to be changed again. Whatever they are followed, which was introduced in 1793 according to the permanent settlement, so that should be changed again. So like that, so many company officials, so they were approached, they were convinced to the East India Company heads. So how could revenues be fixed permanently at a time when the company needed more money to meet its expenses of administration and trade? So company ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಏನಿದೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ? So company ವಿಚಾರ ಒಂದೇ, how to get more revenue to meet its expenses and even the administration and as well as the trade. ತನ್ನ ಕಂಪನಿಯ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಮೀಟ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು, ಸೊ ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ವ್ಯಾಪಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂಡವಾಳವನ್ನ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇವಿಷ್ಟೇ ಕಂಪನಿ ತಲೆನಲ್ಲಿರುತ್ತೆ. So during this time in the early 19th century, so many of the company officials, so they were suggested to change the system. They were suggested to change the system of revenue. So in the northwestern provinces of the Bengal especially, so already we know that the entire British territory in our subcontinent, it was so divided into different administrative units which were called as a presidencies. So one of the presidency, Bengal Presidency. So in the northwestern provinces of the Bengal Presidency, See here, it's all the most of this the northwestern provinces of this Bengal Presidency. So now at present we can see in the Uttar Pradesh. So an Englishman was called as a Holt Mackenzie. So who was devised the new system which came into effect in 1822. So the person was an Englishman called Holt Mackenzie. Holt Holt Mackenzie was an Englishman. So he was devised a new system. So in 1822, about what? About the revenue. See, he felt that the village was an important social institution in North Indian society and needed to be preserved. He understood that and he was felt that so especially in the North Indian society the villages were an important social institutions especially in North Indian society was felt like. So under his directions the collectors went to one village to another village, I mean village to village, and inspecting the land, then afterwards measuring the fields and recording the customs and rights of different groups. Are you getting, dear students? So, according to this, an Englishman, so Holt Mackenzie, so he was devised, he was introduced the new system which was came into effect in 1822. So, according to his, he was observed that so the villages was an important social institution in a North Indian society. So that needed to be preserved. So that under his directions, collectors, I mean the district collectors here especially, those who are collecting the revenues, the main responsibility of the collectors. So the collectors went from village to village. They must go. They must understood and inspecting the land. They were inspected the land, measure the fields, and recording the customs and rights of different groups. And the estimated revenue of each plot within a village was added up to calculate the revenue that each village had to pay. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಹಳ್ಳಿಯೂ ಸಹ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಂದಾಯವನ್ನು ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಎಷ್ಟು ರೆವಿನ್ಯೂ ಅನ್ನು ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಸೊ ದ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಡಿಸೈಡೆಡ್ by visiting the villages, by measuring the fields, by inspecting the land, and by recording the customs and the rights of the different groups. So, the estimate revenue of each plant within a village so was added up to calculate the revenue that each village had to pay. ಒಂದೊಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ ಇಂದ ಎಷ್ಟು ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ದ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ವಿಲೇಜ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ದಿಸ್ ಟೈಮ್ ದ ಮಹಲ್ ಇಸ್ ರೆಫರ್ಸ್ ವಿಲೇಜ್ ಅದನ್ನ ಮಹಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರೀತಾರ ಮಕ್ಕಳ. ಸೊ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ವಿಲೇಜ್ ಅಥವಾ ಮಹಲ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟೋಟಲ್ ಒಂದು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಅಥವಾ ರೆವಿನ್ಯೂ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. See, this demand was to be revised periodically. This is actually not fixed one. This was not fixed one. So it was to be revised periodically. So ಇದನ್ನ periodically ಅದನ್ನ ರಿವೈಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತದ್ದು. ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ periodically revised means it was not permanently fixed like Permanent Settlement Act of 1793. So periodically the collection of the revenue, the system of the revenue that should be changed or revised. So it was not permanently fixed. So the charge of collecting the revenue and paying it to the company was given to the village head. So who was the person collecting the revenue in that particular village or mahal? So used to called as a village head. So the charge that goes to or that given to village headman. So the main responsibility of the village headman was that so he was actually collecting the revenue and paying those revenue to the company. So was actually called as village headman rather than the jamindar. So before actually the jamindars they were collecting revenue. Now instead of jamindars, the village headman so he was charged of collect. He was actually taken the charge of collecting revenue and paying it to the company by the East India Company. So this system, whatever I explained, which was introduced by an Englishman called Mackenzie in 1822. So this system, it was called and it was well known as Mahalwari system. This system was well known as Mahalwari system. Are you getting this, students? So Mahalwari system means actually this system it was devised by one of the Englishman, Holt mechanism, which was the came into effect in 1822. So according to this, so the collectors should go to village, one village to another village, and they must measure the land. Are you getting now? So measure the land and also inspecting, measuring and recording the customs and rights of the different groups, and afterwards so there were estimated revenue of each plot within a village which was called as a mahal had to pay, and the rights of collecting revenue was given to the village headman instead of the jamindar. So this system was to called as, or this system is well known as the Mahalwari system. The next class we are going to learn about the Monroe system, which was actually introduced in southern part of the subcontinent. Thank you. Have a nice day.